Hi, guys, and thanks for joining me today. Um, what I'm going to go through with you is obviously what Daniel has probably discussed with you, which is um, my view of business and the market, and I suppose a bit of an analogy as it relates to people going into business for the first time versus people going to franchises, self-employment, or even in a job. So I drew this on a napkin and through a discussion I had out at a bar with Daniel, and he asked me to uh, record it and show you guys. So that's what I'm going to do. So to start with, we've got a bit of a pyramid kind structure, and most people can relate to a pyramid kind of structure. Apologies for my drawing in advance. And obviously a pyramid has levels. Okay, and then this is going to represent the market, and I suppose individuals within the market. We've got employees. Something different there. There we go. So down the bottom we have employees. And in this analogy that we're using, we're trying to get the boulder to the top of the hill. So in this example, they're all carrying a boulder, and as an employee, you kind of got to carry that over your head. And you've normally got an individual that's obviously encouraging you, either via a stick or a carrot, one of the two. But ultimately, your job is to get the boulder up the top of the hill. Manpower is what we're talking about here. But you're not even getting it very far up the hill, obviously, because at this point, someone else is going to take over who is in business because you're just the employee. Obviously, very heavy. You've got a big chance of getting crushed by the weight here as well. If we move up the level and we go, so if we go from a job, and we go to self-employment, so self. And here you're working by yourself, trying to push a boulder up a hill. Really, the only difference between a job and self-employment is that you're taking on the associated risk in a lot of ways. You've got also potholes that can sometimes appear. When customers, your next job is not waiting; it's in between jobs. You're doing everything. You're doing the marketing. You're doing the whole bit, sales, the whole bit. So it's very easy for potholes to appear because unless you're an extraordinary planner, it's very hard. The next step up from that is obviously being in business. Now, being in business, the boulder gets bigger because you've got things like staff, you've got overheads, cash flow. You still got where does the next customer come from? What are my competitors doing? So there's potholes here, all along here as well, that you can jag it in as well. Particularly as it relates to like sales and what the market's doing. So sales is a big one. Staff is another big one. And quite often at this level, it feels like you're actually making money just for your staff than anything else. You have very little leverage here. You have some leverage, of course, rather than a self-employed person because you've got staff, so that does help. So there is some level of leverage. And also, if the business has been operating in the marketplace for some period of time, there may be some brand. But for most part, there's not. So up the top, if we come up to the top, the biggest advantage obviously being up the top, and this was business, by the way. Business, wasn't it? Business. And this is, we're going to use the franchising analogy. Franchise. Now, in the franchising analogy, you're given a system. So you're given tools and mechanisms to be able to use. And that's going to be a bulldozer, by the way. So you've been given some bit of an unfair advantage, really, because you've been given all the systems and everything to be able to just implement. So it really comes down to your work. A lot of here as well is like second guessing. Did I do the right thing? I don't know. Up here, it's all been done before. You can be guaranteed of that. Also, in franchising, so you're given the system. and tools to be successful. System plus tools. Everything's been done before. There's lower risk, as you can see, of course, as well. As we're going down, which way is the way to go? This way. Risk increases, so risk is obviously increasing. Believe it or not, most people say that their job is a secure option. Well, I would question that as well, but yeah, let's maybe say the arrow ends there to keep everyone nice and comfortable. Now, in franchising, obviously, so we're talking about using systems tried and tested. You've also got your franchisor. Now, your franchisor's job should be to support you and give you a bit of a hand to drag that thing up the hill. Now, that's obviously something that franchisees should really look for in terms of when they're choosing a system to get involved in, is one that is very focused on them. The more focused they are on them, I think Richard Branson said it once, don't focus on customers, focus on the employees, and everything will fall into place. You want an organisation that's very much focused on you, and not just like the person you're dealing with, but it's actually ingrained into their systems. You can see that by the decisions they've made. And obviously now that you're in a franchise system, you've got your franchisor helping you up here. So this is your franchisor. Now it's a question of where that franchise, I suppose, sits in what we call like a leverage scale. So if you've got you've got different tiers. Let's move that out of the way. You've got different tiers within the marketplace of brand, particularly. Brand equals demand. Demand versus supply equals price, your price that you're charging for your services. So the more leverage you have, the more premium you can expect to receive. And of course, with more premium also comes bigger margin. Bigger margin equals where you really get to that freedom stage as well, where you're breaking away from such a thin cost structure. And there is some research and stuff done on that kind of thing as well, how important margin is in order to give you what you want out of your business, which is freedom. So these are like little leverage things, if I can draw these effectively, like seesaws, let's say. This one will have to be a little bit closer here, won't it? But you've got your tier 1, your tier 2, and your tier 3 players in terms of brand. Who do people think of when they think of, well, when they talk about lawn mowing, obviously Jim's Mowing, and then there's a few more competitors in there as well. So let's have a look at your tier 1. Well, your tier 1, after your franchisors help you load your rock onto there, they might have even helped reduce it in size, broken it down for you. And one thing we haven't accounted for here is the fact that you've actually got some teamwork going on here as well in your franchising as well. Teamwork of guys doing exactly the same as you. Your employees, very competitive sometimes in a business, but here you're actually amongst your peers. And once again, an organisation that focuses on its franchisees will focus on them communicating amongst themselves and working effectively in some kind of team effort. Getting back to here, leverage. So depending on what tier the franchise appears in terms of its brand, reputation, etc., will allow leverage and therefore price medium. So the ability of the actual franchise system to leverage, obviously, if you're a tier 1 in here, tier 1, then you can only get the rock up to that height. So it's going to go from there. So from there to there, going that way. Obviously, talking about here, if we're in tier 2, you're going to get it up to the other end of tier 2, which is up probably around here somewhere. And then if you're tier 3, well, tier 3, I've dropped off the scale here, but you get there, you're starting to get the picture of where that boulder could go to. And, to give you practical examples of that as well, things that allow for focus or this leverage, it's not only in the brand, we've talked about brand, but it's also in the systems that the franchise uses as well. So a good example of that in Jim's is, Jim's Mowing is splits. 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 So that's when you take a business. You actually, the system actually empowers you to be able to sell businesses. Something that a lot of systems don't do because they like to keep the money up the top end of the structure rather than sharing with your franchisees. And that comes down to, once again, a business or a system, a franchise system that's focused on its franchisees and franchisees making money. And then, of course, from that comes everyone's success. Splits, the fact that you can put multiple trailers on the road at no more cost as well. So multiple trailers. I completely spelled that wrong, but you'll forgive me, I'm sure. Multiple trailers on the road, and splits, multiple trailers on the road. Employees, there's employees. Writing's getting worse. Employees, and there was one other. Equipment. So in gyms, like for example, even with the equipment, we allow for almost like equipment falls under a little bit to do with like specialization as well. So we have multiple brands. We have the landscaping brand. We have the two-story gutter brand. We have the permaculture brand. But you also find that the specialization is encouraged within the system as well. Employees. The writing's terrible, but just multiple employees within gyms. We have a few guys with like 5 employees. Or one guy particularly that's quite big down south. And then multiple trailers. Yeah, obviously he's got multiple trailers as well. An employee can be one, as well. Quite often a fair few guys have one employee. And splits, splits really, that's an illustration of the system giving back control and money-making ability to franchisees. So it really allows you to leverage off your client base, leverage off your ability to acquire clients and build client bases, which is what business is. Business is the building of client bases. But a business that doesn't, or a system that doesn't allow you then to convert that into dollar value for yourself, is a system that's not fully letting you utilize one of your abilities to acquire clients. So that's just about it, guys. I think I covered most of the things that I wanted to, but just to go back a little bit, obviously a job, you're really pushing it uphill, just over broke. Yeah, absolutely. They do make it hard for you to. It's a system. It's a system. And not a system you necessarily want to, where you're getting the rewards for your efforts, and and conditions. Obviously, and to illustrate that, a good example of that is while risk goes up into these ones here, funnily enough, freedom also goes down. You haven't got any freedom, and that's where margin comes in. If you're making good money, you can afford to take a weekend off, things like that, which is what you want out of a business. It's not all about the money; it is about taking time off. And if you haven't got the margins in your business to be able to take the time to think about your business to make higher margins, or go get some R&R or buy more equipment or whatever it is, it never really gets you to that freedom. And when we talk to franchisees, that's what franchisees want out of their business. They want freedom and control. Cool, guys. So looking back on that, it is a bit hard to understand, but obviously, going to self-employment, it is very risky at this level here. But moving up into business, the risk probably does reduce. There's no question about that, because and you've got staff, so some of the freedom comes back into it as well. But the boulder gets bigger that you've got to push up that hill as well. A lot of regulation. OH&S is a perfect example of that. OH&S versus when you're in a franchise system up the top. We do all the OH&S. Documentation, manuals, stuff like that. Not all OH&S. You've got a role in OH&S that you're obligated to as well, even more so than us. But God, man, we make it certainly a lot easier. Imagine coming up with your own your own occupation health and safety manual. The amount of work that would be involved in that, and that's where as a self-employed person, it would be disastrous. Business, you've probably got some level of flexibility with your time and the staff members to be able to come up with OH&S manuals and stuff like that. But then up the top, you've got a franchise system that can do it as well. So, and then you've got team as a big important, systems and tools. The riskiest thing to do is to do something for the first time, no question. in a large franchise system, you've got lots of people that have got lots of experience that can tell you, no, listen, don't do that. Or you can hear multiple opinions from the team and then form your own opinion, which is what we encourage most of all. Um, and then you've got your franchisor that's pulling and assisting, doing marketing, um, uh, sending you out, weekly emails to inform you what you should be doing at this time of the year, check up, see how you're going, you're making enough money, you're happy with what the business is providing for you, fantastic. If not, try this, try that, because they're communicating with those 140 minds as well, to be able to assist you there too. And then you've obviously got the leverage of the system and the leverage of the brand. And brand is a big one I think about in terms of here, in terms of how you can leverage price, customer acquisition, building splits, duplications, multiple trail, growth. Growth is what you want. The biggest mistake I made when I first got involved in a business was that the business I got involved with had absolutely no leverage. For every dollar I put into the system, the money making machine, if you want to call it that, I got about 20 cents out because I just had no leverage. Leverage, in a system where you've got brand working behind you and systems working behind you, for every dollar you put into this mechanism, you want $2 coming back out. And that's the key, getting on that right track. Well, thanks for that, guys. I think that's probably enough. If any of you guys have any questions or anything like that, then I can certainly answer them, but thanks for your time.